You've probably heard of EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, a therapy known for helping people heal from trauma faster than they ever thought possible. It's the method many therapists use when traditional talk therapy isn't enough, when the body remembers what the mind is trying so hard to forget. But what actually happens inside the brain when someone's eyes move back and forth? Why do trauma survivors, veterans, abuse survivors, first responders, and even people healing childhood wounds describe EMDR as life-changing? Here's the truth. Trauma isn't just a memory. It lives in the nervous system. It shows up in anxiety, overwhelm, shutdown, self-protection, and patterns we don't consciously choose. EMDR works by helping the brain reprocess those stored experiences so they stop triggering the alarm system. By the end of this video, you'll understand the science behind EMDR, how bilateral stimulation helps the brain release what's stuck, and why EMDR is considered one of the most effective, research-supported trauma treatments in modern psychology. Let's begin. EMDR began in the late 1980s with psychologist Dr. Francine Shapiro. The story is surprisingly human and simple. One day, she was walking through a park, thinking about something deeply upsetting. The kind of thought that hits in your chest before it hits in your mind. As she walked, her eyes naturally moved back and forth across the path, and she noticed something strange. The emotional intensity of the memory started to soften. It didn't disappear, but the charge behind it was no longer overwhelming. Most of us would have just thought, that's odd, and moved on. But she didn't. She became curious. She began experimenting, studying, observing, first on herself, then with others, and a pattern emerged. When people recalled a painful memory while engaging in bilateral eye movement, the emotional distress consistently decreased. From that single moment of curiosity, a new form of therapy was born, EMDR. And today, it is recognized by the World Health Organization, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the American Psychiatric Association as a leading evidence-based treatment for PTSD, anxiety, and trauma-related disorders. What began as a walk in the park became a global tool for healing. The science of trauma. To understand how EMDR works, we first have to understand what trauma does to the brain. When something overwhelming or terrifying happens, the amygdala, our internal alarm system, goes into full emergency mode. Its job is to say, we are not safe, and prepare the body to fight, flee, or shut down. At the same time, the hippocampus, the part of the brain that organizes memories into a timeline, starts to go offline. So instead of the experience being stored as something that happened in the past, it gets stored as something that is still happening right now. And the prefrontal cortex, the logical reasoning part of the brain, loses its ability to step in and say, it's over, you survived, you're safe now. This is why trauma doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the nervous system. The memory becomes stuck, frozen in its original emotional intensity. So years or even decades later, a smell, a tone of voice, a doorway, a season of the year can trigger the same panic, the same shutdown, the same grief. Not because the person is weak, but because the brain never got the chance to finish processing the experience. Trauma is not a story of the past. It's the body remembering what the mind can't resolve on its 3. What EMDR does. So how does EMDR actually help the brain heal? EMDR works by helping the brain reprocess those stuck memories, the ones the nervous system never had the chance to finish sorting. During a session, the therapist will guide you to gently bring a traumatic memory into awareness, not to relive it, but to observe it. At the same time, you engage in bilateral stimulation. This might look like your eyes moving left to right, alternating hand taps, or listening to tones that switch from one ear to the other. This creates what's called dual attention. Part of your mind is touching the memory, and another part is anchored in the present moment where you are safe. That rhythmic left-right stimulation activates both hemispheres of the brain, allowing logic, emotion, sensation, and memory to finally communicate again. It's like the brain is able to unfreeze what was stuck. Think of it as pressing play on a paused trauma file and then letting your mind refile it where it belongs. Not in the danger center of the brain, where it keeps triggering panic or shutdown, but in the past, where it can be remembered without reliving it. This is how EMDR helps the body learn. It's over. You survived. You're safe now. 4. The brain mechanism. So what's actually happening in the brain during EMDR? Brain imaging studies show something remarkable. As EMDR is happening, the amygdala, the alarm center, begins to calm down. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that brings logic, grounding, and perspective, starts to come back online. And communication improves between the emotional brain and the thinking brain, allowing them to work together instead of in conflict. Some scientists compare the eye movements in EMDR to what happens during REM sleep, the stage when we dream. During REM sleep, the brain naturally processes emotional experiences, resolving and reorganizing them so they make sense. But when trauma is overwhelming, that process can't complete. EMDR essentially creates that same neurological state while you're awake and supported. So you're not reliving the trauma. You're giving your brain the chance to finish what it couldn't finish back then. As this integration happens, the emotional charge of the memory begins to soften. The memory itself doesn't disappear. It simply loses its power to hijack your nervous system. You can remember without feeling like you're back in the moment it happened. In other words, the story stays, but the suffering doesn't. 5. What EMDR is effective for. EMDR was originally developed to treat PTSD, especially in veterans and trauma survivors. But over time, research has shown that the brain's healing response through EMDR works far beyond single event trauma. It's been highly effective for childhood trauma and attachment wounds, the kind that change how you see yourself and how you love. It's used for anxiety and panic attacks, where the body reacts before the mind understands why. It's helpful for depression linked to unresolved pain, where the heaviness is tied to something that was never fully processed. People use it for grief, complicated loss, phobias, performance anxiety, and even chronic pain because the body stores emotional memory. And one of the most powerful uses of EMDR is shifting deep-rooted self-beliefs like, I'm not safe, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, or it was my fault. What makes EMDR unique is that it doesn't rely solely on logic or willpower. It works directly with the brain's built-in information processing system, the part of us designed to heal when given the chance. For many people, EMDR feels like taking the emotional charge out of a painful memory while still keeping the meaning, the growth, and the wisdom that came from surviving it. The memory stays, but the suffering doesn't have to. What a session looks like. A typical EMDR session begins long before you ever touch the painful memory. Your therapist first focuses on safety and stabilization, helping you learn grounding skills, breath work, and ways to calm the nervous system. You also identify internal and external resources of strength, people, places, sensations, memories of safety, so your body knows it has support. Only when you feel resourced and ready do you move into reprocessing. Together, you identify a target memory and the belief that became attached to it. Something like, I'm powerless, I'm unsafe, it was my fault, or I'm unlovable. These beliefs often formed in moments when you had no choice or control. Then, through gentle sets of bilateral stimulation, eye movements, taps, or tones, your mind begins processing the memory in layers, not reliving it, but reorganizing it. Clients often describe moments of clarity. A shift from I should have done more to I was just a child, from it's my fault to I survived. Tears, silence, a deep breath, or even unexpected laughter, these are signs the nervous system is releasing what it no longer needs to guard. The memory begins to belong to the past, not the present. 7. The transformation. As EMDR progresses, something powerful begins to happen. The memory that once felt overwhelming starts to lose its emotional intensity. The body stops reacting as if the event is still happening. You can still remember what occurred, the facts don't change, but the meaning and the felt sense inside your body do. Where there was once fear, there may be calm. Where there was shame, there is now understanding. Where there was a belief like I am broken, you may begin to hear a new truth. I survived, I adapted, I'm still here. This is not forced positive thinking. This is the brain naturally integrating the experience, the same way it integrates every memory once safety is restored. Many clients describe it as finally being able to breathe again, or waking up from a story they didn't realize they were still living inside. If this message resonated with you, take a breath. Healing is not linear. It's not quick. It's not about being strong enough. It's about being supported enough. Your nervous system learned to protect you in the best way it knew how, and now it's learning that it no longer has to live in a state of emergency. I'm Nori and my AI twin sister, Nora, sharing reflections on trauma, emotional healing, and the return to safety in your own body. If this video brought you understanding, hope, or clarity, please like, share, and subscribe. Because when we heal the wounds inside us, we don't just change our lives. We change the lives of everyone we love. You deserve peace. And you're closer to it than you think.